Hello gamers, Brewski here again with another checklist. Yes, the very first one of 2022. Like I mentioned, have been a little bit behind, so I'm catching these up. This is a list for Jory on the Retribution of Scyrah Facebook page. This is going to be a 25-point list in Retribution of Scyrah. Now, Jory wrote that he basically had a brawl size list using Grizzled, G4, Gore 4, the guy who got pwned, whatever you want to call him. And he was having some trouble playing against his opponents. He wasn't quite sure, but he was getting wiped off objectives from what I remember. This is about 2, maybe 3 months ago. I'm a little off, but anyway. Jory, you were taking Goreshade, Silas Wishnalier, a Phoenix, a Sphinx, a Lithveer, the Arcanist Mechanic, a Liss Healer, a minimum unit of Risavas Defenders, and a minimum unit of Houseguard Halberdiers. And your problem was the units were getting wiped out and your jacks weren't quite doing the job on their own. You wanted to tweak the list. Well, this is what I came up. So, this is in Defenders of Ios theme. You still have Goreshade, you still have the Phoenix, you still have the Sphinx, you still have Alethir, Blade of Nissor. I'm not sure what kills more people, his sword or his beard. You be the judge. The Arcanist Mechanic, a Priest of Nissor, Selena Raphael and the Nis Hunters, minimum unit, and a minimum unit of Risavas Defenders. Now, what's the changes here, basically? Number one, we dropped out the Halbs, we dropped out the Healer, and we dropped out Silas. Now, that was definitely, a lot of people will take him because they want to buff their caster. In this case, I don't think you need it. I think you need a more cohesive army that works and buffs itself much better, which is why we have this. So, you have, what we're basically looking at here is between Alethir and the Priest of Nissor, you're buffing both your units. Okay, I'll get into that as I get more into the list. The Arcanist Mechanic is a must-take. I don't know a single Ret list that does not have one of these guys. It's just how that goes. We at least have one. We always have 3. I don't know. It's a thing. Okay. Every list I've read, they have Arcanists. It's just, we have to. Go figure. Must be part of the union rules or something. Anyway. Getting into it, so just going over what we got with Grizzled the Forgiven, Feet, Whispers of the Veld, enemy models without cold immunity destroys or removes from play a friendly model in Goreshade's control range and melee, becomes stationary for 1 round. When a friendly model is destroyed in that control range of G4, he gets a soul token, and you can replace soul tokens with focus at the start of the next control phase. So basically we're setting up cold effects, we're setting up stationary on the opponent, and when a model is destroyed there's a soul, and G4 gets the souls and turns it into focus. I'm going to keep calling him Goreshade just because I think he didn't account himself well in the scrolls, but whatever. He is immune to cold. He has Arcane Vortex. He can negate spells that target Goreshade or models within 3 inches of him for 1 focus. This kind of wastes the focus that someone uses to cast that spell, so knowing that, they may not do it. It's a very short range bit. I wouldn't be relying on this. He also gives this to his battle group using Field Marshal, so the Phoenix and the Sphinx will have that. His sword, Voas, they should just call the thing Badass. 2-inch reach, magical, has freeze. Models hit by it get stationary for 1 round if they aren't immune to cold. So you're going to be whacking things on the head and they become stationary. Good way to set things up. Spells. I could see a lot of people getting conflicted about this, but I honestly think Goreshade is better as a buff than he is as a combat badass. He's got Dauntless Resolve. Friendly models and units get +3 armor and tough. Out of formation models are not affected. Freezing Mist. Place a 3-inch AoE cloud effect within Goreshade's control range, and the AoE models without cold immunity suffer -2 to attack and last for 1 round. Pretty good. Ghost Walk. Friendly model or unit gets ghostly for a turn. It can move through terrain and obstacles without penalty. That is going to be nice for setting up charges or getting in position. Hand of Ice. Model or unit is -2 armor without immunity to cold. Light of Wrath. Offensive spell. Models hit loose stealth and -2 defense for a turn. And Revive. Return 1 grunt to a friendly unit with 1 unmarked box. Put him in control range in formation and within 3 inches of a model in this unit. Can't use the combat action that turn, so you can bring people back to life. Kind of weird for Goreshade. Anyway. Feat-wise, it sounds like you need to invite your opponent to kill things and then get yourself out of combat or pile in to take further advantage. One or the other. You're either setting up to withdraw and then attack again, or you're just getting attacked and then dogpiling in even harder. Spell-wise, there's a lot of things you can do here. And I see why you were originally taking Silas, but I don't think that's the way to go here. Dauntless Resolve, +3 armor and tough. That's just going to make things really, really hard to kill. You probably want to use this on the Nis Hunters, Selena Rifle and the Nis Hunters, because they're the more fragile of the two units. The Rizavast Defenders are a goddamn tank. You can basically throw them into anything. Freezing Mist is an area effect. Models without cold immunity suffer -2 to attack. That's really cool if they have a unit that is very combat heavy. Your opponent is playing something that's very tough, and all of a sudden it's just not as good as it was. He could be setting up to charge with it and then think twice because they're going to have a -2 penalty there. Hand Device, model or unit is -2 armor without immunity. You can make tough things very fragile that way for your attacks. You can basically set things up to get killed. I don't love Light of Wrath unless you're playing something like Crix. Some units in Circle do have stealth, I remember, but I don't know that you're going to run into them too often. Revive, you have small units, you're going to want to bring them back. I don't know. I don't see that being as workable because G4 has to be right there to use it. It's just not as handy. Phoenix, which I, of course, love too. He's got the Arc Node, so you can bounce spells off him. Force Field, so he's focus dependent, removes 5 damage for 1 focus. Not a bad deal. Add to that the Phoenix Field, remove D6 damage points from the shields after resolving continuous effects during the maintenance phase, so he's already healing his shield anyway. He's already getting that back anyway. And Combustion. If you've seen Beavis and Butthead Do America, the scene where the guy farts in front of the campfire, that's basically what this guy does. Models within 2 inches suffer a power 12 fire damage, and fire continuous effect can make melee attacks after this, so he sets everything around him on fire. Get him stuck into a squad, preferably with low armor. Beans, enough said. Weapons, he's got the Halo Cannon. That is a range 10, area of effect 3, power 14 shot. Critical continuous fire, fire and magical damage. Thermal Blade, range 2, power strength 17, really not bad in melee. Magical and continuous fire. And he's got an open fist so he can throw and grapple and all that good stuff. Oddly enough, the weird thing about both of your jacks here is they both have an ability to help with your spells. The Sphinx has the Rune Sphere Cannon, which range 12, power 12 for 1 shot, and it sets up Psychic Relay. Models hit have Arcane Attraction. A friendly model casting a spell adds 3 inches to the range. This is going to work for your Priest. This is going to work for G4. So you can potentially hit them with that cannon and you have extended range on your spells from Goreshade, or you can use the Arc Node on the Phoenix and take advantage that way. It's a good way to bait switch, you know, either or. Your opponent's not going to know which way you're going. Other than that, the Sphinx has light and heavy force claws. Their power strength 15 and 17 respectively, and open fist so he can throw as well. My thoughts on this, Jack, you want to attack run it. You basically want to pick what you want this to attack first. Use the cannon for the first turn, maybe 2, depending on how fast it takes you to set up. And then just keep going for that unit. It's a fire and forget kind of thing. Otherwise, you're not going to get it in. These are the slower jacks. It's the Vire jacks, so they don't move as fast. Alright. Getting to the bearded menace himself. Aelithir, Blade of Nisor. Grandpappy Badass. Alright, so he's tough. He's got cleave. When he destroys a model in melee, he can take an extra attack. Dying Breath. This is cool. When he gets boxed, he makes 1 basic attack, so whoever kills him is getting whapped on the head as he dies. Elite Cadre Risavas. Friendly Risavas models get Dying Breath, so your infantry also become this awesome kamikaze unit that can, as they die, kill people again. So that's kind of nice. Girded. Model and friendly base-to-base don't take blast damage. If you have him with Risavas, this is kind of nerfed, because they already have that. If you put them with Selena Rayfill, then Aelith extends this to their unit too, so that's kind of cool. Precision Strike. When this model damages a beast or a jack, pick which column or branch gets damage. This is a way of surgically decapitating a warjack or a beast. You can take out their cortex, you can take out their spirit or whatever, and mess them up that way, so they're just not that effective anymore. Steady, can't be knocked down, and Veteran Leader Nis. This applies to your Risavas and your Nis Hunters. While in command range, friendly Nis get +1 attack. So everybody's getting extra attacks when they're in his command range. So you want to keep these guys kind of together no matter what you do. If he's with closer to the Retribution or closer to the Nis Hunters, keep them together. Enough said. Arcanist mechanic, again, really duh. Magic ability, repair D6. He can remove D6 damage points from a Jack in base to base. He has a wrench. Don't put him in combat. Spells, concentrated power. Target Jack in command range gets +2 melee damage for a turn. And in power, you can undisrupt a Jack and give it 1 focus. Even if you're not disrupted, giving extra focus is not going to hurt you. That's extra shots, rerolls, buffs, special attacks, you name it. Alright. Priest of Nisor. Immune to cold, Pathfinder, so you can move through terrain. Battle Wizard. Once a turn after he destroys a model with a melee attack, after it he can make 1 magic special attack. So he can use his normal magic. He can also fight people. After he destroys a model, he can use a spell that way. So if you know you're going to kill something, you can get him in combat, do some damage, and then do a spell. Elite Cadre to the Nis. Nis get immunity to cold. Who saw that one coming? His spells. Prowl. While this model has concealment, it gets stealth, which is +2 defense, and then range and magic attacks greater than 5 inches away auto miss. Here's the fun part. Snow Reeves. He always has concealment, so he always has that +2 defense, and everything will miss. So he's kind of unkillable. He's kind of, you have to get up and smack him in melee, otherwise you can't really shoot him. Feel free to advance this guy up and do some fucking damage. Alright. He's got a Winter Blade, 1-inch range, power strength 12 weapon, magical, critical freeze, and critical hit model gets stationary for 1 round. Good way to set things up if you don't want them moving around. Against Circle, that will be handy unless they teleport, because I believe they can still do that. Spells. Blessings of the Winter Father. In command range, friendliness get +1 attack rolls. That does stack with, what was it? I think it's Aelithvir's Veteran Leader. Yeah, that does stack. So you can basically set up your units to do this amazing amount of attacks in any given turn if they're both alive, if they're both around and in range. That's nasty. If you do this right, you can literally just rip the guts out of some unit or some Jack or something without even hardly trying. Alright. And his other one's Frostbite. It's a spray, power 12 cold damage. That's good if you just want to hit a bunch of things. And Winter Storm. Enemy model starting activation in the Priest command range lose Flight, Pathfinder, and Eyeless Sight. So if you're playing Legion and you got a bunch of Nephilim or flying, they're going to get screwed. And you're going to slow stuff down moving through terrain. Pair that up with G4's ability to give out Ghost Walk, and potentially you hinder the enemy and set yourself up perfectly in some situations based on your terrain. You got to see what you got. Okay. Selena Rayfield and the Nis Hunters, minimum unit, so they have combined ranged attacks, which is good if you want to take out harder targets. They have Pathfinder. Selena has Hunter. While in formation, models in the unit get Hunter, which ignores cover and concealment when making ranged attacks. They all have Nis Bows, which is a range 12 power 10 weapon, and they all have Claymores, power and strength 9, but they are Weapon Master, so they're getting additional damage dice. Again, I think the gist here is keep your units somewhat together, take advantage of the buffs between the Priest and Aelithvir and his beard. Get these guys in and make them do damage. Try to keep them alive as you can, because the Nis Hunters are the more fragile of the two. They're multitaskers, but they're more fragile. And lastly, we got your Retribution Defenders, minimum unit. These guys are tough. They have defensive line. While models are base to base with at least one model in the unit, gets +2 defense against melee and can't be knocked down. You could pair them up in 2s and you would have this, so that's no problem. Girded models don't take blast damage. This is the buff Aelithvir gives that they don't really need. Again, give it to the Nis. Precision Strike. Models can choose which branch or column takes damage on a Jack. If you have to pick a unit to take on Jacks, do it with this one, because they will be able to surgically cripple it much faster than the Nis, and they're more powerful. Weapon Masters with Retribution Blades. Power Strength 10. Between the buffs and debuffs you have with the Priest, Aelithvir, and then G4 spells, potentially this can take out a lot of things. Dying Breath from Aelithvir means that if anything does kill them, they're still getting the last word. You're going to have a lot of fun with these guys, and they're going to piss off your opponent to no end. Anyway, basic thoughts on the list. I think it's very compact, and you're going to have to equally have the units and the jacks do damage, but it's not as solo heavy as your other list. You have the priest, you have Aelith, and you have an Arcanist, and that's it. The list healer would be great, except it's not offensive. Silas is not as offensive. This way, you basically have something that buffs your jacks, buffs your units. The Nis solos keep your guys in way better shape in terms of their number of attacks, keeping them tough, keeping them alive. But you don't have so many frills units, things that aren't necessarily going to help so much. The list healer is going to restore damage points. She's not going to, you know, she helps a model a turn, basically. G4 can do revive if you want to do the same kind of thing. But with these units, if you use them correctly, if you use things like the Ghost Walk spell, if you take advantage of their base-to-base guarded on the defenders, you're going to have a lot easier time getting them across the board and actually getting them to do damage. You really have to set up strategically on this one. If they're out in the open, your units are dead, the jacks can't do all the work themselves. If anything, set up a couple juicy targets. Like your Priest of Nisor is really tough. The guy has that the Snow Wreath rule, so he really can't be targeted by range stuff. Set him up and use his Cold Spray and start numbering down units. You can, you know, take a unit down from 10 to 8. Well, that's 2 less guys you have to kill. Nail a range of jacks or something like that. Just do whatever you need to do with his ranged spray spell. Use G4's offensive spell. Sling him off the Arc Node on the Phoenix and the Rune Spear Cannon from the Sphinx. You can hit things a lot faster that way. It's set up and shoot, and include the Nis Hunters in that. They can shoot. And then line up your assault and do basically an alpha strike. That's what you're really looking at with this list. Shoot, get close, do an alpha strike. That really is the best move you're going to be able to make. If you have to hold something as an objective, I suggest you do it with your Risavas. That's pretty sacrificial of Selena and the Nis Hunters, but I think it's going to work better for you because you're going to hold that objective and stay on it with tougher guys than with fragile wet paper bag armor. Anyway. So, Jory, sorry for the wait. There is your list. There's my thoughts. As always, I'm taking more list requests, so if you guys want to see these, send me an email or drop a comment below. If you like these kind of things, leave me a like, subscribe to see more content, and I'll catch you on the next one. Later, guys.